wonderful Chip Talks, where today we're going to talk about antiparasitics. So this is going to be a fun one for me. I've kind of been on this journey like everybody else with antiparasitics. So I'll kind of tell you about my journey along with, the information about antiparasitics. Antiparasitics are a class of drugs that have been created by pharma, right? And really, that class of drugs was designed to get rid of parasites. So, get rid of hookworms, roundworms, same things dogs get, same things horses get, right? And we get those things. We get those things all the time. And again, I, have a device where that gives indications of those things in people, which we see all the time, called bioresonance. By the way, bioresonance is an extremely powerful tool. It's non-medical, but it does give good indications of, things that potentially might be wrong. And it's a good guidepost, let's just say, to help, in this whole kind of anti-parasitic journey. So you guys will get this as we walk through this, and I'm going to reiterate this 100,000 times. And if you've ever heard me talk, then you know that, I really believe that parasites, that means bacterias, funguses, viruses, and actual roundworms and hookworms, the worms, actual parasites, are the cause of most disease. So when we say treat the cause, we feel like, that we're on it with antiparasitics and natural products and herbs that create antiparasitic effects. This is just so new, right? So this is a new field of study. In fact, I'm late this morning. I'm a couple of minutes late, but that was because I'm looking at the immune system. We're in the process of doing some grants around with the university, with my team, let's just say. Part of that is we really have to map out the immune system probably deeper than it's ever been mapped out. And we need to do that in order to build a test, to be able to baseline a test. So got to understand your immune system extremely well in order to understand kind of what the endocannabinoid system is doing against your immune system. And again, we'll be able to make great progress because these parasites all have to hijack you in some way. And so we're going to talk about this in the context of cancer, probably mainly today, but we just take it on gospel that, a lot of disease, like H. pylori is a bacterial hijack with the same principles that we're going to talk about today. HPV is a bacterial hijack. Epstein-Barr virus is a bacterial hijack. Metacyclovirus is a bacterial hijack. It's looking like autism is a bacterial hijack. It's looking like most disease is a bacterial hijack. So again, antiparasitics are, oh wow, that's interesting. Antiparasitics are going to have a lot of light, God's light there coming through the window. It's kind of cool. But antiparasitics are going to have a big role in the future of health. And so I think you guys will get this as we kind of walk through our presentation for today. Okay, so this is kind of how I got onto antiparasitics. I guess we don't need my login information there, but this is how I got onto antiparasitics. And was kind of fun, and kind of fun to be and fun in a good way, but kind of fun to be a part of this story. And so the whole anti-parasitic story really started off with a guy named Joe Tippins. And Joe happens to live here in Oklahoma. He lives in a city called Edmond, which is an Oklahoma City suburb. But Joe, I guess story goes, Joe was online. He had late stage cancer. He was afflicted, let's say, pretty severely by his cancer. And he wanted help. He wanted some kind of help. So he was looking for all kinds of non-traditional avenues to address his cancer. And he ran into this vet. And this vet said, well, you need to try this dog dewormer, or it's an mammal dewormer called fenbendazole. And so Joe did that he was taking CBD, and he was also taking vitamin E. And his cancer got better. In fact, his cancer was arrested. Now, I haven't talked to him lately, so I don't know how he's doing lately. But again, his cancer was gone, okay? So That's significant. So what did it? And the cool thing was, and it was a Tulsa World story, but this was right after we passed medical marijuana in Oklahoma, and so for whatever reason, I was the medical marijuana expert there for a while, at least in the Tulsa area. And so they called me about this story, and they said, "Chip, do you think the CBD, help cures cancer?" And I'm like, "Well, no, it's going to help a lot of things, but it's definitely not going to be a cancer cure. It doesn't really have the action. So it might help, with other things that are, chemo and other things like that, but it's not going to be the guy." And they said, "Well, what about vitamin E?" And I said, "No, not that I know. I mean, vitamin E has some." Aloe vera has some pretty good anti-cancer properties, but again, aloe vera is, vitamin E is not aloe vera, right? So it's a, something that's in aloe vera. So it probably wasn't the vitamin E, but it got me curious and it got me researching about antiparasitics because of fenbendazole. And again, the cool story was the reason that he heard about this was this story came from the veterinary space because it was sort of urban legend, but there was a lab, I think in Illinois, and they were it was a cancer lab, and it was a mice and rat lab, and then that's what they generally use to experiment with cancer. And so they have to give these mice and rats cancer, and they've got methods to do that. Well, they get a batch of, I don't know if it was mice or rats, but they get a batch of lab animals in, and they cannot give them cancer. They cannot get tumors to even take hold. And so they were trying to figure out what was going on, and they tracked it all back to that certain lab group had been dewormed with fenbendazole. And so it looked like fenbendazole was preventing the cancer from forming. So that sort of got into the vet community and then eventually got to Joe, and now that's out. So I have told many, 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 many people who have cancer about fenbendazole. And again, those people are still around. Let's just put it that way. So I just did it. So this is just a Google search, right? So antiparasitics, cancer. So antiparasitic agents as autophagy inhibitors. While autophagy induction promotes cancer cell death, I'm not going to read that to you because that really doesn't matter. And this has to do with chloroquine. So hydroxychloroquine is basically chloroquine, as is like quinine. Okay, so cinchona bark is where this comes from. But look at this, is what cancer is linked to parasites. So now we're actually admitting, I guess, in pharma that certain parasites are linked to cancer. These guys are liver flukes. There's more. So does ivermectin kill all parasites? It kills a lot of them, which is a good thing. And again, ivermectin is an antiparasitic. So isn't it interesting that as we sort of go back and look at all this stuff that you just couldn't talk about in 2020, that they're antiparasitics and they're kind of linked to this stuff. So it's pretty cool, So look at this. What 5 diseases are caused by parasites? Well, there's way more than 5, I'll tell you. But foodborne diseases. I see Gardia in so many people. I mean, that's a very, very common thing. There's so many more than this. That's funny. But anyway, I just want you to get a sense of this, antiparasitics and cancer and how many stories there are and how much, let's say, smoke there is, a lot. So this is a study that I use a lot. So it's just repositioning of antiparasitic drugs for tumor. And this is a more recent one. There's another one. I think it's this one is, there's a study that says repurposing antiparasitic drugs for cancer, and I use that a lot. But this is good stuff. So there exists a close connection between parasitic infections and cancer. Yeah, again, think about cancer. It's God made you perfect. Every cell inside of you is always striving toward perfect. Cells just don't break and mutate, boys and girls. That doesn't happen. It takes something. It takes an insult. It takes an injury. It takes an infection. It takes something to break that cell because God made it perfect. It's always striving to be perfect. Okay? So, oh gosh, gee, I guess your cells just mutated all of a sudden and they got out of control and you got something called cancer. No, it doesn't work that way. Cancer is alive. It's a living thing. It moves. It metastasizes. It wants to get around. It wants to take over you. It wants to eat you. It wants to decay and decompose you. Okay? So there exists a close connection between parasitic infections and cancer. Duh. Helminth infections are widespread the world over. So helminths are roundworms, hookworms, pinworms, tapeworms, those guys. And again, I look at myself all the time, and again, we have dogs, so we're around things that spread these guys around. So these things come and go, believe me, all the time, and we need to consider this in how we consider our immune system, our diet, our everything, because we've got to really guard ourselves against this for this reason. So, helminth infections are widespread the world over, and the causative parasites are thought to be responsible for causing cancer in humans. Hookworms, roundworms, pinworms, tapeworms. Yeah. Thus far, they named some, but again, there's a lot more than these guys. Thus far, that guy, and that guy have been recognized as clear biological carcinogens. Yeah, there's a lot more than that. The specific carcinogenic mechanism is not yet clear, and the metabolites of catechol estrogens and parasite-derived oxysterols may play an important role. Unlike worms, protozoa have not been identified as biological carcinogens. However, certain characteristics of protozoa are similar to those of cancer. In a manner similar to the immune system, to the immune evasion strategies employed by cancers. Now, I want you to, this is important, okay, because this is what I'm studying right now in a great way. So what are these immune evasion strategies that are employed by these bugs, right? And it's super important because if we can figure out the immune evasion strategies, then we can create ways where your immune system will kill these guys, because your immune system should kill these guys. The reason that it doesn't is because these guys they're smart. They figured out evasion strategies so they can get around your immune system, right? And so it's all about the immune system. It's all about understanding basically the shields that God gave us to protect us from the rot of this world. That's what we're talking about here, okay? And we'll leave the rest. However, the incidence of malaria is positively correlated. So malaria is a bug with mortality in most cancers. So again, if you have the bug and cancer, not so good. With the exception of colorectal, lung, gastric, and several other types of cancer whose mortalities exhibit an inverse correlation with malaria. I'll tell you about that one in another show. But the one bug likes to win, right? So if you got two bugs, it depends on what the other bug is. If you got malaria and something else, again, it depends on the most aggressive bug who wins. But that's why that happens, and that's why it's somewhat confusing, I think, in the literature. So why does this happen sometimes and not happen at other times? Well, there's extenuating circumstances, let's say. All right, so these are albendazole and menbendazole are human, and I believe albendazole is also a vet-prescribed medication. I think you can get albendazole, from a vet store if you need to. Menbendazole is the human version of something called fenbendazole that you definitely can get at the vet store. So fenbendazole is dog dewormer, 101. It's the standard de facto go-to dog dewormer that's sold at every single ag store all over Oklahoma. And you can probably get it online for less at some, pet Walmart or something. So these are available. Menbendazole is just a sort of human version, and menbendazole is prescribed. So again, if you do have cancer, I would demand that your oncologist prescribe you menbendazole minimally. Kind of depends on the type of cancer, but again, and if he objects or she objects, your oncologist, then go to Right to Try. Because you have a right to try this if your life is threatened, and that is something that was signed into law under the previous presidential administration. So you have a right to override your physician's prescriptive authority if your life is endangered with something called right to try. Hopefully everybody heard that. You have a right to overwrite your physician's prescriptive authority with something called right to try if your life is threatened. Minbendazole. It's kind of expensive, so it's just, again, we can't do anything with this because first of all, I'm not a doctor. I can't prescribe it. And I'm not going to sell fenbendazole to people. I mean, I'm just not going to do that. So we need to be able to tell people what to do and where to get it. And so I'm telling you what to do and where to get it. There's many people that take fenbendazole on a daily basis. Okay, so it's helpful. All right. This is just from Drug Bank, and I just wanted to get in here and look at all the, these are the antiparasitic agents, so drugs used to treat and prevent parasite infections. So, inquiring young minds, you might want to, whirl through this list and look at mechanisms of action, look at, how these guys work, basically is what I'm saying, and then look at natural products that can duplicate these effects. So that's kind of, what I do, and that's very fruitful and beneficial. This is actions, right? So, if you look at ivermectin, what does ivermectin do? Well, again, it is affecting this glycoprotein. It's affecting the multi-drug resistance protein. It's affecting ATP binding, which is interesting. And I don't know what 3A4 does. Let's look at that, shall we? Cytochrome P450 3A4. Let's see what that does. This is always fun to just do in live fire. P450 3A4. But you can kind of get a sense of how, you need to look at things. Is an important enzyme in the body, mainly found in the liver and in the intestine. It oxidizes small foreign organic molecules such as toxins or drugs so that they can be removed from the body. It is highly homologous to that guy. So this guy has to do with basically getting rid of drugs and getting rid of like toxins from the body. So ivermectin is going to help you clear toxins better. Here's cytochrome T2D6. Let's see what he does. I know it's got nothing to do with antiparasitics, but it's still a fun exercise. It is an enzyme that in humans is encoded by it. It is primarily expressed in the liver. It's also highly expressed in areas of the central nervous system, including the substantia nigra. What does it do? It's not enough. Remember, mixed function. Involved in the metabolism of xenobiotics. So xenobiotics are foreign substances in your body. So all of the, ivermectin is really helping you clear foreign substances. That's what it looks like. So again, you can play this game with all these other guys, and here's our friend albendazole right here. So you can kind of see he has similar effects on some of the same guys that ivermectin does, but he also affects some other things. This is his main mechanism of action. So he disrupts tubulin, which is how these guys eat. They have to form little tubes and they go out and suck up glucose. Anyway, there you go. So there's some fun stuff if you're a product developer or you're interested or you just like to research stuff. So have fun in Drug Bank. Okay, and this is just to illustrate that natural products can also, basically, where do you think the drugs come from? Well, they come, man didn't invent this whole system, okay? God did. And God always put this stuff in nature. So this stuff is in nature. So that, again, any drug, there's going to be a nature equivalent. And it's really better to say they've made drugs from nature. But let's say you can backtrack that into nature and look at basically what things in nature provide similar mechanisms of action. So like what in nature would affect, this guy, right? So let's look. Natural products. St. John's wort, common sage, and berberine. Okay. So you kind of get the idea that, there's lots of ways that you can sort of do similar things to these drugs, and there's, drugs can be constructed from natural products, so it's not that hard to do, and that's what I've been doing for, 8 years. Okay, but as you look at things here that have these nice mechanisms of action, against parasites, and it, it takes a fair bit of work to backtrack all that, into natural products that are going to be powerful enough to have, let's say, close to the power, of something like pharma. So it takes some work to do all that, but it's, you can do it. So the information's out there. Anyway, but curcumin and pepperine is a really good combination. So, and I use that combination. We've got product, if you look at our True Medics product set. So I got a product called Energy where I use that combination very effectively, and that's a really good reports on that product as to how it works with a bunch of different stuff. And the reason though is it's because it's antiparasitic, okay? So it's helping you basically, or anyone, clear the parasites that might be impacting you and causing you symptoms of disease, okay? It's literally that simple. It's literally that simple. Okay, so I just pulled this up on pathology because I use the word all the time. And I want to really, we look at, when we think about antiparasitics in the context of cancer, but they're a lot broader than that because, again, most disease, at least to me, looks like cancer, okay? It's some bacterial or fungal or it's pathogenic infection, that's taken hold, and it's beginning to, bloom, right? So it's beginning to try to move around, and it might be in other organs too. And if it's in other organs, it sends off the same markers as a metastasized cancer, okay? So it just does, all right? So pathology, what pathology means is, what are the factors associated with a certain state of things? So if I look at like this I call it the bacterial hijack, but if I look at the bacterial hijack, now it's a little different depending on the bacteria, and it's a little different depending on where it is, but there's a lot of commonalities to that. So you would call that the pathology of the bacterial hijack, okay? So what is the pathology of parasites? In general, parasites can cause pathology by mechanical disruptions as they migrate through or displace tissues. Others secrete toxic substances, but the predominant pathological mechanism is via the human immune response to infection. So what this is saying is that these guys the parasites use our immune system against us. They basically hijack us in a way where they hijack our immune system and create these loops where they're advantaged, not you, and where you can't kill them. And this is common. This is common in all of us. And so understanding this and being able to break these loops is the future of medicine. It's also the cure for disease. It's the cure for disease. So we have the cure right now. Okay, I'm telling you the cure for disease, and it exists. And it's basically this being able to disrupt the pathology of parasites. And that's the cure to disease. So, and you can believe me or not, but it's coming. Now, the nice thing is about this, and so we'll get a little futuristic. Now, you can address this, as we've talked about, with antiparasitics. But antiparasitics are having great success, and you can go to the internet, look at testimonials and all that, as to what successes people are having with different types of antiparasitics. But, ivermectin is the biggest one, right? Ivermectin won, I think, a Nobel Prize. Ivermectin has been used as an antiparasitic, kind of all over the world for a long time, very safely. It was only when COVID happened that now all of a sudden, ivermectin was a bad thing. So these guys are safe, and they've been, around for a long time, but I would encourage you to just look at antiparasitics. But antiparasitics, while they are effective, it's still sort of a hit and miss thing. So it depends on what you have, and I've got to do analysis on all that. And it's not like just this, thing that's going to work every time, right? So it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. However, the thing that will work all the time is if I can get 222 nanometers of light inside of you. If I can do that, then I can safely disinfect your cells. I can, just do all kinds of stuff very, very safely. Now, I can't do that because I can't shine a light, inside of your, digestive tract, right? I probably can, over time with, getting stuff up inside of you, but you're not going to like that very much. So, that's probably not a viable option. I can get there. I can take 222 nanometers of light and I can translate this into frequency. So, but it's up in the petahertz of frequency. I need a nuclear generator to be able to, create enough RF to affect you, and then it would probably melt you, when I did that, because I'd probably just destroy all your cells because it's too much energy. So I can also take that though, and I can hit it in harmonics. And this is what Tesla was doing, what Rife was doing, what, a lot of these guys that have, let's say, frequency machines that are, pop your bacteria. Okay. It's a little harder than that. And so as you go down in sort of intensity of frequency, then your accuracy of what you're trying to hit in harmonics has to go way, way up. So if you're trying to pop bacteria with frequency, you're going to have to hit about 8 digits of, accuracy, right? And that's hard to do. That's very hard to do. And most devices right now won't produce 8 digits of accuracy on an RF, frequency transmitter. So that's kind of impractical. But there's a third way to do this. And again, there's a third way to, let's say, create that 222 nanometers of light, or kind of how you'd react to it. And that's magnetics. And so magnetics does hold great promise here. And magnetics is probably where we're going. So if you think of the concept of a med bed, in theory, that could be built right now. And again, the evaluation would be something like a bioresonance evaluation. And the actual treatment would be a magnetic type treatment. And you might get followed up with a, some kind of supplement that you need to take that's also antiparasitic, or to help you clear out all the little dead bodies you just created. It's really interesting in this pathology. I'll say this, I know I'm way off subject here, but in the pathology of how this bacterial hijack works and kind of what we're trying to break with the antiparasitics, in that pathology, it's like a war, okay? So, and again, if you have this bacterial hijack, and we all do, you're constantly fighting a war. And the war is really between your immune system and these guys that are trying to disrupt and gain ground in your immune system. So its immune system is your, missiles and bombs and tanks and all that is our immune system. And they're fighting back with their own resources, but they're using kind of our immune system against us, which sucks. But it depends on who's winning that war, what happens. But if you're losing that war, let's say, and again, it would take them a long, long time to sort of kill you, but like 80 years or 90, about how long we live. Again, we're designed to live a lot longer than we probably do. So it takes a while for them to get us. But again, we want to be winning this war. So if you're losing the war, though, again, what happens is you always have all this crap in your blood system because you're trying to move immune mediators there. You're trying to clear dead soldiers out of the battlefield, all kinds of stuff. And that affects the kidneys in a certain way. The kidneys begin to look like they're diabetic kidneys. And the kidneys begin to have some sort of, tumors and cysts in them that are benign, but they're still, don't help the function of the kidneys. And the kidneys begin to, slowly fail over time because you have to clear all this stuff out. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. As we get better at this, we'll better understand this, though. And again, it's, if you're healing from a disease, and it doesn't really matter if it's pharma, or if it's, through some of these methods, if you're healing from a disease, you've got to be conscious of your kidney, drink a lot of water, make sure you're getting the dead soldiers out, right? So, all right, boys and girls, I think we'll leave it there for today. So, as always, you can contact us. If you are concerned that you might have something, some kind of parasitic infection, we all do. Come see us, because we can get to the bottom of that, and then we can help you with some solutions, and we'll find solutions that fit you. So, a lot of people have a ton of faith in the pharma system, which is great, and really want to be, treated, by a doctor through the pharma system. Well, we'll kind of get to the bottom of what's wrong with you, and then we'll send you with a good and anticipated what's wrong with you, indicated what's wrong with you, and then we'll send you to a doctor to confirm all that. So we definitely will do that for you. We'll look at blood tests. We'll look at all different kinds of things here. But we're on this. We know what's going on, and humbly said, we're pretty far along here. No one's got this completely figured out yet, but we're getting close, very, very close. Well, love you guys. We'll see you next week.